Yeah, I take that with a pinch of salt, if I'm honest, Mark. It's a bit like sailors complaining about the sea. We live in a capitalist society and there are currency markets and they go up and down. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that this isn't a serious situation, and indeed, more so than the pound, those borrowing costs, potential steep interest rate rises, that's what we should really be focusing on. But the notion that people lawfully trading the currency markets and shorting, as you say, it's when you bet on a currency going down, that's a completely legitimate activity, and I don't really see any merit in trying to point the finger at people who are trading currency. It's what people do.
More sort of grist to the mill, where a former US Treasury Secretary, Larry Summers, then saying, well, he expects it may even have parity. The pound may have parity with the dollar and the euro.
Yeah, some of us have been predicting parity between the pound and the dollar for many, many months, unless the Bank of England started to raise interest rates a bit more decisively. Look, Larry Summers is a Clinton-era US Democrat. He's no friend of the Conservative Party, and I think there is quite a lot of politics in this narrative. Yes, you can point the finger at the now comically named mini-budget, the most influential financial statement, certainly of the last 10 years. And you can say that the Tories over-egged the tax cuts, particularly that slashing of the top rate of income tax, the so-called additional rate, from 45 to 40%, without putting forward costings of how they were going to do that. You can certainly make that case, and it's a legitimate case. Most of the new borrowing, of course, is for this energy price cap, and no one in politics would argue against that. But I think a lot of the reason the markets have taken such umbrage is also because the Bank of England has been so slow to raise interest rates. Pretty much everyone across finance, across the globe, expected a 75 basis point rise in interest rates by the Bank of England on Thursday, and there only turned out to be a 50 basis point rise. The markets don't like that, because then they get caught, as the phrase goes, with their pants down. They're told by the Bank of England to expect something, and so they position themselves, and then they lose money when the Bank of England doesn't actually deliver. So it's partly about the Bank of England. It's partly also about a budget statement, a mini budget, that was rightly seen as ill-judged in some parts. But I must say, this morning, the pound has recovered back to where it was before we went into this kind of crisis mode. It's back now at 108 against the dollar. And also, crucially, those interest rates on financial markets, which will influence the Bank of England, they have also started to retreat. But be in no doubt, anyone who's got a fixed rate mortgage that's going to expire soon, they will face higher interest rates when they try and remortgage than otherwise would have been the case. So this is certainly a serious situation.
Yeah, and we've got the Chancellor meeting the great and the good from all the financial areas, asset managers, pension funds, insurers, Aviva, BlackRock, JP Morgan, big hitters. That meeting going on at the moment. It was supposed to be talking about deregulation, so-called Big Bang 2, but clearly the agenda will have changed, and all their eyes will be on November for, well, as we say, a maxi budget, another fiscal event, but clearly he's got to try and reassure everyone now.
Yeah, the name of the game for the Treasury and the Bank of England is to try and convey the notion that they're not rattled, that they don't think there's a panic on, trying to paint the currency markets as overreacting, as full of hyperbole, and many journalists too, they're trying to sort of undermine a lot of the commentators. This meeting between Kwasi Kwarteng, the Chancellor, and various leaders in the City of London, it was in the diary a long time ago. He won't have wanted to cancel it because that would have looked like a panic move. So he's forced to go to this meeting, and he wants to talk about making it easier for pension funds to invest in infrastructure, which was a lesser noticed part of that mini budget on Friday. But of course, you're right, Mark, he is going to get questioned about the currency and borrowing costs more generally. Of course he is. And a lot of those comments will no doubt leak to people like me and you, and we'll end up broadcasting them. I personally think yesterday the Treasury, when it said we're not going to do anything or say anything, you can wait until an autumn statement on the 23rd of November. That's a long way away. And the Bank of England too trying to say we're not going to do anything, we're not going to do an emergency rate rise to protect the pound, we're just going to carry on and have our next meeting in early November. That's quite a courageous thing to do, to act as if they're so unrattled by what's happening, given that the whole world is talking about the value of the pound. I wonder, Mark, with the best will in the world, if the Treasury and the Bank of England can stick to that move on, nothing to see here narrative. We'll find out over the weeks to come.
Yeah.